You got your coffee, Eames?
You guys are live though.
No, we're just recording. We're not live.
We're just recording. Yeah, it's not live.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You're good. Hey everybody, welcome back to a fresh new episode of Speak Freely. Hold on one second real quick. Refreshing. I am your host, Mr. Freely, along here with Mr. Speak. Mr. Kuno Stars, my friend, how are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Had a nice nap before we started, you know?
Nice.
Get the old engines lubed up. I don't know if that's what you do to engines. I should stop talking. We have a very, very special episode today. A very, very cool guest. Honestly, like when you told me about him, I was like, this should be an interesting episode. And also, it's kind of like, I guess you could say, our first like interview type episode, because we're not doing like a bracket or anything. Like it's just a sit down, one-on-one, a triple threat, if you will, for all you wrestling marks out there. So this should be fun. Brian, do you want to introduce our guest?
Yeah, so this gentleman I met when I started working at Copa Vida. He was, I think, literally the first person I talked to, staff-wise. And he got me a drink while I waited for my interview and things like that. And we've been good friends ever since. So we brought him in today to talk about his retro gaming experiences. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Eames. How are you, buddy?
Hello.
Hey, what's up, man? How are you doing today?
Very good.
Awesome. What's your drink for the evening?
Coffee with a little bit of milk.
Ooh, what kind of coffee?
Copa Vida coffee.
Oh, really?
Ooh, smart
Yeah,
choice.
no one's standing off screen holding a gun to my head.
Yeah, okay.
Hey, if it's not Copa Vida, is it really a cup of coffee?
Yeah.
Not a sponsor.
What kind of milk? Are you using alternative milks? Any nut juice for your
No
coffee?
nut juice.
It reminds me of
Good old cow
Good old
milk.
cow.
it reminds me of like a Lewis Black joke where he's like, it's not soy milk, it's soy juice. But yeah, awesome.
So,
Well,
I am
Oh.
drinking a coffee from Golden State Roasters. It's very local here to Orange County, coming out of Placentia, right? It's right close to Fullerton for anyone here in California. And it's actually really, really good. It's got, I think the bag said hints of like lychee and walnuts. So it's like a little sweet and very nutty, and I like it. So Golden State Roasters, check them out.
Golden State Rose, awesome. I'm drinking tea, a stash tea bag. I don't think you can see stash right there. It's like pomegranate hibiscus with a little bit of honey, which apparently is a big no-no, but it's fucking delicious to me.
As long as you like it, it's not wrong.
As long as you like it, right? It's like I think we were having this conversation before we started recording. It's pretty much like it's like how people say how you should drink your whiskey. It's like however you want to drink your whiskey. It's your whiskey. Like enjoy it the way you would enjoy whiskey. So
Totally agree.
yeah. So before we get to Eames and all the wonderful things he's doing, and personally for me to get to know him because I have no idea who he is up until just right now, let's get to news of the week, or as we like to constantly change, news that matters to us for the week. And this is usually just what we talk about, stuff that matters to us, any news topic, whatever it is. It could be political, it could be entertainment, it could be something personal to you. It's just something that mattered to you this week, news that mattered to you this week. And I think it's only fair we start off with our guest, right?
Oh, me?
Yeah, of course.
News that matters
So-
to me. I mean, there's the Pokemon Direct, which I don't really care about. News that matters to me is Daft Punk broke up.
Yes. All right, he took my news. Yes, 27, 28 years and they broke up, right?
Yeah. Bummer. But it's the perfect time to binge a bunch of Daft Punk music.
Definitely. What a lot of people I know that have been doing listening to the score for Tron Legacy, which is arguably like a great fucking score. Have you seen Tron Legacy? Both of you?
I have not.
I have. That's the reason I watched that movie, because of those guys.
Dude,
I wouldn't have watched it otherwise.
Brian, let me give you my login to Disney Plus and go watch Tron Legacy.
It's just say it out loud. What's the email? I'm gonna write it
Yeah,
down.
the email is speakfreelypod@g. No, but that legitimately is like, it's a great score. Like it totally fits the aesthetic of that film. And then it's Daft Punk. So, you know, it's just catchy, great fun music. So yeah, they broke up. That was like a huge hit to a lot of people. But man, what a legacy, what a discography they have.
I listened to Discovery 15 times in the last 3 days.
There you go.
Oh wow.
There you go. What
Have you
other
Has
go
anyone
for-
ever
go for
seen
Brian.
Daft Punk live?
That's my biggest regret in life, is not being able to go see Alive in 2007. I was in Hawaii.
And you just missed it.
Alive.
Well, here now we know, right? Hawaii will always be there. We thought Daft Punk would be like Hawaii. We
Yeah.
were wrong. No, but I mean, like when Daft Punk was like in I guess their heyday, as you would say. Like I knew about them, but I wasn't really like crazy into them. You know what I mean? Like Brian can attest to this. I grew up like a heavy metal punk kid, so that was like, and then you know you're a
Doesn't go with the
teenager.
aesthetic of all your you know,
All the
whatever
black
word
shirts I owned, yeah.
said.
All those songs about breakup and stuff just didn't fit the whole party vibe that Daft Punk was going for. So I
Yeah.
needed depressing, slit my wrist and cut my eyes types of lyrics. You know what I mean? Ohio's for lovers. There you go.
Right,
It
David, what
doesn't
about
mesh with Papa Roach, you know. It doesn't.
Hey man,
Hey.
it was my last resort to listen to Daft Punk. All right, I'm done.
David, what about you? News that matters to you this week?
Oh, I was gonna ask Eames if anything else like stood out for him this week.
Okay, this is a new segment, so we have no idea how to navigate through this.
How to
mean,
navigate
quite-
through it?
You could say that about the whole show, really. So
You're doing.
That's ours.
You guys are doing a great job.
that's our aesthetic. Speak freely. They don't know how to navigate through segments. That's the tagline. But anything else? stand out
Eventually,
to
your
you this
guys'
week?
title will change to like speak very coherently, very specifically.
Yeah, speak in order. The evolution of. But yeah, anything else?
No, nothing that would probably entertain your listeners
You'd
or
be
viewers
surprised.
or listener viewers, your audience.
Yes, our audience members, all two of you. Thank you, Brian's mom. Just kidding.
She doesn't-
Oh, I was about to say thanks in Spanish, but I'm not gonna bother now. Brian, I think I'll let you go next. Any news that sticks out to you this week, personal or otherwise?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a different turn than Eames's news, but lately there have been a lot of reports on attacks on Asian Americans, specifically elderly Asian Americans in the nation, and it's been linked to hate crimes due to like the pandemic and the rhetoric behind the whole China flu, things like that. But here in California, Governor Newsom just signed a new bill that is going to dedicate $1.5 million to, I guess, doing more like research and advocacy in terms of like Asian Americans and like the hate that comes with this nation just in general, right? Because it's past 4 years the nation's really taken a turn. So what I wanted to talk about is different ways that we can kind of like sort of help, because yeah, like 1.5 million coming from the government is going to be a big help in California. But there are other things we can do, like different organizations, and specifically there's one that I worked with in the past with different events and stuff in Little Tokyo. They're called Asian Americans Advancing Justice. They're a nonprofit located in in downtown LA, and they do a lot of work with immigration rights and just helping like people get their papers situated, things like that. And there's a lot of outreach for the community, do a lot of events for like helping people get like housing and job security, things like that. So if you wanted to help volunteer, you can always go to their website, which is Asian Americans Advancing Justice. You just Google that. So that's a good thing. And then also I recently donated to the Chinatown Community for Equitable Development. And then they specifically work in Chinatown in LA with the same thing, like affordable housing and like helping people build resumes, things like that. So if you wanted to go ahead and do that, you can also Google it and donate there as well.
That's very cool, man. Yeah, and we'll probably put some links down in the description down below for anyone who's like interested in helping out. That's a very good cause. Yeah, that I've been made aware of that these last 2 weeks. Really, this week, because last week I was without modern civilization stuff, aka power and internet. But yeah, man, reading that, I was like heartbroken, but at the same time, this might sound bad, but I wasn't surprised. I'm like, well, this is America. So, like, unfortunately, like, it's like the same thing that happened in 9/11, right? They said Muslims were terrorists, and then what happened? A bunch of hate crimes against Muslims in the following week. So, you have a president or ex-president coming up on TV calling it the Chinese virus, and of course, ignorant dummies. It's unnecessary. It's unfortunate. It's completely reprehensible, but there is something we could do about it. And you mentioned some wonderful ways we can do stuff to kind of help out the community. So that's really cool in that aspect. I'm unfortunate that we have to do it this way because of violence, but
yeah, I saw another sign up for, you can sign up and you can help the elderly get from one place to another. So if they have errands to run, you can go meet with them and just walk with them just to make sure that they are safe.
Yeah. And of course, like if you happen to actually be witnessing a hate crime, like don't just whip your cell phone out and video record. Like step up. Like it's not necessarily being a hero. It's just being a common human being, a decent human being. You know what I mean? With common courtesy, be like, hey, dude, don't do that. Like,
yeah, and there's actually a website called stopaapihate.org, where as soon as you enter the website, there's like report incident button. You can just real quick. It takes like 5-7 minutes to type up an incident report.
So,
yeah.
Anything else, Brian?
This week, no, I'm just excited for baseball. To be honest, like spring training has started and things like that. So, I know.
Yeah. Dude, my MLB app has been blowing up with notifications like, the boys started swinging, practicing on the field, going to the batting cage. I'm like, yes. I'm so excited.
Drums get put away. And
shut up, you bitter old man.
Angels in the outfield.
Yeah, Angel cameras. I mean, anyways, Brian, anything else?
That is it.
Cool. I'll try to do mine on some lighter notes. So I guess the most important news of the week for me is like, hey, I have power and internet again. Yay, Texas.
All right.
I don't.
It's a low now, where it was.
It's a beautiful 75 degrees with like 60 to 70% humidity now, which is like, I mean, the memes don't start coming where it's like Texas, get your shit together. Like it's so true though. Literally last week below 20s and like 15, 16. And then this week, literally a week after, it's like 70, 75 with like typical what we expect Texas to be. So it's odd. It's been an odd year in general, but the last few weeks have been especially odd. But thankfully, like I've been okay. My family's okay, as you can see. Like,
did you guys go on a cruise to Cancun?
No, we went to the Bahamas. You know, there's a lot of people in need at the Bahamas. So, and then my daughters, you know, they were cold. So Ted Cruz is an idiot. Oh my god! Out of all the dumb things he could have done, literally, like when people ask like, well, what do you expect Ted Cruz to do? There's nothing he could do, and I'm like, yeah, doing nothing would have been better than fucking packing up and going to Cancun. What adult. But whatever. It is what it is. Yay, Texas. I guess the one thing I do want to talk about the most.
Hold on 1 second. Eames, you're from Texas, right? Originally, you're born.
I'm originally from Texas.
Ooh,
I was born in
part?
Houston, Texas. And
Hey!
I lived in San Antonio mostly.
Oh, you were born in Houston?
I was born in Houston.
Oh, cool. But you lived in San Antonio most of your life.
Yeah.
Actual, like in San Antonio, or like one of the surrounding like towns?
One of the surrounding areas. New Braunfels, Texas is where I went to high school. Well, Canyon High School on the 35.
I get it. I tell people I'm from Houston, but I'm not actually in Houston. Shh.
Yeah.
Yeah, but your mom's still in Texas.
She is.
That right?
And she was okay. Yeah.
She was okay. Okay.
She was A-okay.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, last week was such a debacle, but thankfully, at least a lot of people I know.
I heard the coronavirus was the numbers went a lot lower last week in Texas.
Yeah, because no one was leaving to report themselves sick. They were just freezing. They were freezing the virus in their homes.
Yeah,
freezing the virus to death. You little nice to see you. So, I guess the one thing I do want to say about news that, and I'll leave on like on entertainment news, is because we are recording this on a Thursday, which means later on tonight I'll be watching the 8th episode of WandaVision, which I am very excited for. It's the longest episode so far. We're getting 47 minutes. Yeah, WandaVision. Have you been watching it?
I keep hearing Wonka Vision.
Wonka Vision? No, WandaVision.
Wonder Vision. Okay, no, never heard of it. Sorry, I don't watch TV.
Are you into Marvel, like the MCU and stuff?
My favorite Marvel character is Deadpool. Yeah.
Oh, but you're not into like the Disney MCU stuff, like the cinematic universe, anything like that?
All the movies?
No.
Moving on.
I watched the Avengers 1. The Avengers 1 on my telephone, my iPhone 4, back when it first came out, like on other platforms other than the big screen. So that's how much to show you how much I care about the Avengers, is that I watched it on a tiny little phone when I was sick or something.
I think we're gonna get all thumbs down for this podcast based on that comment.
Yeah, just like they just like push this guy down. Like, bye, dude.
Brian, you should have told me. We did a whole episode on MCU. Disney's gonna be pissed at us. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah. I'm excited. I'm excited for that show. Excited for baseball and anything else. And I don't know. I've done other stuff, but I'll plug all that stuff after. So.
Yes. Okay. That was the news that matters to us this week.
So far.
We
need a better title. News of the week that matters to us segment.
I like the title. You just gotta make sure that it's said all the way through.
Yeah.
No hesitation, sure. Guys.
No hesitation.
Right. You gotta keep energy.
All right, more confidence. All right, let me try it again. He said more confidence. Okay. Segment. Damn it. Okay.
Cut. Editor
of the week news. Wait, no, not of the week. Oh God.
All right, well,
Brian, just edit out and post. Thank you.
Right, got it. So I mentioned it earlier that Eames and we met at Copa Vida. I walked in to apply basically, and Eames was one of the first people I talked to. And once I got the job, I started working there, and I got to talk to Eames a lot more. I got to learn about him, and I think we really like became friends through all those shifts working together. What do you remember about that day, Eames, if you even remember?
Honestly, I don't remember you coming into the shop and me being the host to you in the interview, but I do appreciate you, Brian, and it was a lovely run that we had, getting to see each other 5 days a week at least, sometimes even more because of our work.
Yeah.
So what Brian is saying, it was clearly love at first sight for him, but you had to build up to it.
Yeah,
I had to.
So.
Just too many people coming in. I'm like, hi guys, hi.
Yeah.
But I'm really just like, I just want to sit down and drink some coffee.
I took David once to Copa Vida. It was like an evening. We were going, I think, to the Comedy Store. We stopped by Copa Vida to get some coffee. And I think you might have been there working and served us some coffee, Eames.
I think I remember you guys sitting down and having some coffee. See, that was when you were on my radar then.
I don't remember. I just remember coffee and be like, yeah, this is pretty good. All right, let's go laugh at jokes.
Comedy. But yeah, so during our time there, while we were friends and stuff, you would always come in with your Switch. You would play games, like 10-minute games during your break, right? And so I think that's what kind of sparked the conversation of us, like kind of talking more about games and stuff. And then you got into this whole hardware mod of like retro games and stuff like that. As you can see in Eames' background, you got like the Game Boy Advance, the Game Boy Color, things like that. And so we wanted to bring you on today and kind of talk about that and kind of give us a rundown of like kind of things that you do, right, to mod. Because I remember, I think it was like one of the Christmas parties where we played White Elephant. You had like gifted somebody a modified Game Boy Color or something like that with like 75 games on it.
Yeah.
So
that thing's worth a lot now. After COVID, I regret giving them that. No, just kidding.
You want to put their name and address real quick out there so we could
let's go find that. Let's go find
that.
Let's
go find them real quick.
Yeah, but let's start off with what got you into gaming. Like, what is your history with games?
I grew up in gaming. I remember having a Nintendo way when I was first born, and I actually got my first personal console, which is the DMG, the original Game Boy, when I was 4 years old. My single mom took me to work a lot, and I would probably pester her too much, so that she got me something to keep me entertained and distracted with. And since then, it's, games come and go, and a lot of my games growing up, I ended up selling, and I didn't game between 2010 to 2016, and it was Pokemon Go that got me back into it. And my wife and she was my girlfriend at the time, we would go play Pokemon Go, and I would tell her like, oh, back in the day you could battle and trade, and we each got a 3DS, and once we got that over and done with, I was like, oh, I got to go back into the classics. So that's when I started looking up Game Boys, and noticed that audience, speak freely audience, if you don't know anything about the old school Game Boys, they're hard to see. You have to like angle them right at the light, or you have to use the sun. And who wants to play outside? You want to play at nighttime when it's like calm and peaceful. So I got into opening it up and putting screens in the Game Boys. When I first got into it, it was really hard. You'd have to like take the whole thing out, shave everything. I spent about $300 on a Game Boy Color, and that's how much one of these guys is new. But I got into it. I was like, this is my thing. Like, I made this. Like, this is it. So I started collecting them and started modifying every single variation of it, with the latest one being this guy right here, which is called the Unhinge Sp. And I forgot to bring my old SP, but the SP is it's like a little like a razor phone, you know, like it flips open. This is metal, and it's the same aesthetic as the Game Boy Color, except it can play Game Boy. It can play all the Game Boys, all the Game Boy games. This is the latest and greatest metal Game Boy.
The Game Boy,
What's that?
right? The screen on your modified SP is a little bit bigger than the other Game Boy Color.
Yes, actually. So the Game Boy Color screen is quite small, where the modified Game Boy, the Game Boy Advance, is significantly larger.
So I want to ask about that transition, because you mentioned how, like, when you were a kid, and I could relate to that too. When I was a kid, my parents got me the original Nintendo's entertainment system, and eventually I got a Game Boy that was unfortunately stolen from me as a young boy. But that transition to me is interesting, because you mentioned there was a period in your life where you just kind of sold the games and you didn't play. During that time, what kind of deviated you away from video games, and what were you doing? Like, because I would imagine those are formative years.
Traveling.
Okay.
Yeah, I was traveling a lot. I actually ended up living in Japan for a little while. So right before I moved, I had a Wii and a DS, and I got rid of those. Moved to Japan, and was trying to live from a backpack, you know, like a suitcase. And yeah, I would watch shows. I would watch people play video games.
Let's Plays, yeah.
I get my jollies from that, yeah.
That's very so gaming. It's safe to say gaming was in your life sporadically. You never totally gave it up. It's a little ironic to me that, like, you sold all the games made in Japan where you were going.
I know, right? Yeah.
That's like, but I get it.
But I'm sure I would have come back with a big suit. Like, all my stuff would have been left there, and I would have come back with just games.
Yeah, it would have been like, hey, so where are your shoes and stuff like that? I had to sell them for this limited edition Pokemon Red.
Exactly. Only available in Japan. Only available in this specific Japanese store.
Exactly. But I also want to ask you, because you mentioned Pokemon Go and you and your now wife, like, bonding over that and kind of bringing you back to video games, and you said you bought the Switch 3DS based on Pokemon Go. So how did you get into the whole modding community? Like, do you remember that first either a YouTube video or maybe like some kind of interview or podcast where you were like, oh, this is a thing?
It was this version right here. It's a Super Nintendo themed Game Boy Advance, and someone had this and they were selling it, but it was sold out. By the time I got into it, it wasn't available. So I looked at other things, and I saw that other people were putting Raspberry Pis in their machines. So they were making the Game Boy, they're taking the computer out of that one and putting a different computer in there that can play an NES and Super NES and Game Gear and game, like all the things, right? And I tried it, and I didn't like it. It was clunky. The startup time was like a minute long, where like Game Boy starts in like 10 minutes. And that's when I started wanting to modify the Game Boys, because that was like, okay, so I tried this alternative Game Boy and I didn't like it. So it's the original Game Boy, and let's see how good we can make the original Game Boy.
That's awesome.
It's a huge community.
Yeah.
One of the Discord servers, one of the main Game Boy Discord servers has like 7,000 members. And in fact, it's just like the flow is so fast that I'm doing something. I put in a message, and because I have life and stuff, I go back and it's gone. So
I remember just off on a tangent, the first time I became aware of it, and I'm sure you've seen this, was someone like modded, not really modded. It's like they almost built like their own version of a Game Boy, but it played all the Wii games. Like, it had a hard drive in it, and it had like the Wii controllers that like with the actual like Wii buttons, but it was like a handheld. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I saw one called the Kill Me, and it was an Altoids tin can that was
Oh my god,
packed up, and it looks disgusting, and it had a Wii inside of it.
I low-key want it. That's my aesthetic.
Yeah.
An Altoids can? Yeah.
An Altoids Wii can? Bro.
Yeah. My and we talked about this in the past, Ian, but my foray in like hardware modification is with the PlayStation 2. And what I wanted to do is basically play games from Japan, but here in the States, and that wasn't possible because the whole reaching code, things like that. And so what happened was ended up modding the hard casing of the top of the PlayStation 2 so that I could flip open like the lid and have access to the discs, right? So I would have to load in a CD with the software that allows me to like change the region within the PlayStation 2, and then pop open the lid, take out that disc, and then throw in whatever game I wanted to play. Right, and that was a lot of work. Like I only had like 3 or 4 games because it was like I have to like download the games, put it on a CD, then I have to like upload the software and flip it up. I just ever since then I kind of just stuck to as is models. But it seems like you really enjoy like tinkering and stuff.
A little bit.
Yeah.
I like the After Effects. It actually works, and I can see the screen. You know.
Yeah. So
I don't have the best tools. I don't have the best tools, but after COVID happened, I started getting really into getting connected with different modders that had way more experience than me, and they helped me get better. So before, I would actually send one of my friends that I made projects that I didn't do well, and he would fix them for me and send them back. Now I feel a little bit more experienced.
That's awesome.
It feels good being able to say, hey, I'm going to open up your whatever, like your phone, and fix it.
That's really cool. I mean, going off of Brian's tangent, like the most modding I did, like I modded a PSP to be able to like basically be an emulator and play any games on it I wanted. And then I did a physical mod on my Switch where I switched out the skins to make it look like like the old school N64 clear skins.
Yes.
I think I have my Switch right here. Hold on. So
the atomic purple?
I got like a bluish.
The ice
green.
blue.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I can honestly say the back part's easy, but the hard part was this guy.
Yeah.
This was a physical pain in the butt, but I mean the aesthetic.
So many little switches and stuff. Little ribbons that can tear.
Yeah, that was the scary part. So I watched a bunch of YouTube videos because I didn't realize how intricate the Joy-Cons are. Like they're super intricate. And I was like, I don't want to mess this up because that's like a $70 mistake. So for the most part, they work. Every once in a while, like a button might not like register for some reason, but other than that, I mean, they connect. So I'm okay with it. The aesthetic still looks cool. So, but that's like been like the extent of like my modding, like what you have back there. So yeah, thanks, man.
That's a recent deal. I don't think you had that when went on our little trip to the Midwest.
No, I don't think I did either.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
COVID,
think
guys.
I did that.
It's just
COVID.
People so bored that they start tinkering.
Exactly. I got into making breads. I'm just kidding. But yeah,
So
go for it, Brian.
I actually, because you mentioned the whole like intricacy of the Joy-Cons, and actually I have Eames on a project for me because I don't want to do any modifications myself. But Eames is modifying, or not? He's basically he bought, and he's going to like reshell the Joy-Cons for me.
Yeah.
And now, cool. Yeah, now that I hear it, it's really difficult. I'm so sorry to have to put this on you.
Yeah, I like it.
But you like it.
Mean, so yeah, and obviously the more you do it, I would imagine like the easier it gets because practice makes
for sure.
Yeah, so And dude, I had to buy the tools and everything, and like I've never used them again. So Eames, next time I see you, if you want my stuff, just as
Sure.
backups for your backups.
Yeah, for sure. Someone advised me like, hey, you should put a class and have people get all the supplies and you just walk them through it, because there's a lot of people that are wanting help, and a one-way YouTube video can only help you so much. But if someone's like, oh, coaching you, and like, oh, don't forget this part, it would be fun.
That's actually legitimately, that'd be a great Patreon page. Legitimately, like you can post videos and you can have like actual video chat one-on-ones depending on your tiers.
Yeah,
That'd be, I would look into that. I think that's sound advice, legitimately speaking. Yeah, I really want to talk about the no hinge SP.
yeah.
I still have my old school SP with the hinge and stuff. So
Do you have it?
The process.
Do you have it accessible?
Yeah. Let me go look it up.
Yeah. The metal SP is probably probably the best Game Boy I've ever gotten to. It's not the most comfortable one. This one has curves to it. It has a badonkadonk, but and the screen size, the aesthetic, metal, and
The metal looks nice. I really like the metal.
And it's super easy. You just basically take it. The hardest part is taking apart the SP, which David's about to show everyone. Taking it apart, yeah. So the hardest part is getting that little ribbon that's connected to the top and connected to the computer at the bottom, and shimmy it out of it. But once you get all the parts out, it's basically you just drop it in, and it has, so your SP, the connectors are in the back. It's advanced iPhone, because that one doesn't have a headphone jack. You have to get a dongle for listening to the sweet noisy sounds of the Game Boy Advance. And this one has a modification for a headphone jack and a USB-C, and it's just drop in. You have some light soldering to do to get it to charge, but it's legit, man.
Ooh, if I wanted you to do that for me, how much?
Just buy the parts. I'll send you the.
Because it still works. Like, let me see here. Oh yeah.
Bong. The Game Boy Advance.
You haven't charged that in years, and it still works.
No, I played with it recently. What was it? What was it? I was playing Final Fantasy 1 in that, and I also still have the original
DS
in black. So, again, my original Game Boy, that big brick of a Game Boy, got stolen when I was a kid, unfortunately. And then one of my sisters, God bless them, when they were kids, lost my original Game Boy Color. So that's how it goes with siblings and being a kid. So, but I still have these relics, thankfully.
Yeah, that SP's better than both of those. So
yeah,
you're in a good start.
Legitimately though, I remember dude being like, "Yo, the SP is like baller. I need to take care of this."
Nobody touched this.
No, that's mine. Mom, get them their own. Which she did, and they broke it. So there you go. I learned my lesson.
Still have the broken ones? Because I'll take them.
I think do they? I'll have to ask, because the last thing I remember last time I saw it, it was a black SP, but the backlight didn't work anymore. But it's still like red games and stuff.
Those boards.
I'll ask,
because of this. Those boards have become pretty sought after. So,
ooh,
you know what I'm saying? So this was a donor. The screen was broken, so the screen got tossed. But all the computer and some of the buttons and the membranes, which connect with the computer and the buttons, they're used in this one.
So that one has no cartridges in it, right? You have to you pre-install the games in there already? Oh, that's cool. I didn't notice that.
Yeah. This is a flash card. It has a little SD drive, so
ooh.
Another cool project I'm working on that I haven't complete yet. This is called the Gba Consolizer. So it's basically, once I finish it, it will be plug and play into HDMI, so you can play it on the TV.
Ooh.
And it has a Super Nintendo controller port, so that you can play Game Boy on the TV.
That's very cool.
The chunky plug-in ones.
Yeah, the chunky plug-in ones.
Yeah.
But I haven't had time to work on that one.
That's very cool, man.
On your TV, your computer screen, whatever you want to stream it, you can.
That's the point. Yep.
That's awesome. So this might be somewhat of a tangent, but I'm very curious because you seem like a legitimate gamer, and like modding is like a thing, right? So what is your opinion on like emulators and how companies, specifically like Nintendo, for example, who's very notorious about sharing their IP, and they've cracked down on like, you know, the emulators. I don't want to say their names because I don't want to infringe myself. but what do you think about that? What do you think about the whole notion of like for the most part, yeah, there's some people who downloaded games illegally and never played them or whatever. But like I'll say for me, for example, when I got into the world of emulators, I was like, I kind of want to play the games that I grew up playing, but just better without having to like find the wires and like blow into the cartridge and hope it sticks and all that shit. So what's your opinion on all that, on emulators specifically?
David, I have a podcast too, and in my podcast we talk about emulation. Like that's how we connected, the crew and I connected over the hype that was Retroid Pocket 2, which looks just like a Nintendo product actually, and it can emulate everything up to Nintendo 64 and Dreamcast for $80. What, you know, it runs on Android. It's clunky. It does have a sleep mode. So compared to the emulator that I was talking about in the Game Boy, that one didn't have a sleep mode. That having a sleep mode makes a world of a difference, because you can just turn it on and have a game sesh. So it's necessary. I think there's a big need for preservation, because a lot of these old games are rare. There's a game that's in this guy that's super rare, and because of that, I don't want to take it out of the house. So I have the little cart that I have that can just put the same game except all of them. You know, so it's a big need, and I, despite always going back to the old stuff, I love all the new stuff that's coming out of China. Retroid Pocket, there's a new one called it's codenamed the 199. So it's going to be a $200 device that can play up to GameCube, and it looks sleek. It looks like a modern PlayStation Vita.
Ooh, that's cool. I like that aesthetic a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something to be said about video game preservation, right? I always kind of equate it to like the whole Napster thing. If you remember that big thing with like LimeWire and shit. But it's like it I mean, for us, it was the original gangster was Napster, if we're being honest. But then, you know, Metallica attacked them, and then LimeWire came out like a phoenix from the ashes. But there's something to be said about the preservation of it, which I think is a valid option, because like a lot of these games, like for my big one, my favorite game when I was growing up was Shadows of the Empire for the N64, the Star Wars Shadows of the Empire. And it's only available on N64. They never released it, never remastered it. Eventually, like, Lucasfilms and, like, Nintendo had a falling out, so, like, Nintendo can't even re-release it on any of their systems, and you can't find it anywhere. And now, since Star Wars is owned by Disney, like, technically that game doesn't exist because it's no longer canon. So, like, there's like a few generations who don't know what the hell that game is. And it's like, luckily I still have it, but if I didn't, like I would never be able to revisit that without emulation, without an emulator and technology and stuff like that. So I think that's a very, very valid point that sometimes game companies don't think about that. They just think bottom line and dollar. Exactly. So yeah, I will definitely, and also you too, dear listener, go find that podcast, which we will also have a link to the description down below, and but we'll also plug it at the end of the episode. But yes, I will be listening to that. Brian.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I mean, I think you guys touched on a good point with game preservation, things like that. Because especially right now, like the whole like nostalgia vibe is huge, right? Like everyone wants to like go back to the good times, right?
The
No one
good
wants,
old days.
yeah. And so like for me, like N64 was all about the WWF No Mercy. Like I played that game for hours and hours and hours, and creating like my own characters and putting them in matches, things like that. I once had a 2-hour ladder match with a friend of mine, like the same match for 2 hours, and it was like the best 2 hours I ever spent in my youth, right? But that game, I believe, is only on the 64, and you can't play it on anywhere else. And so for me, I would either have to borrow David's N64 or get an emulator.
Essentially, or try to find an N64 like on eBay or something. Or if you're lucky to have like a retro gaming store somewhere near you, they may or may not have it.
Someone's calling.
Or if you happen to know a guy who knows a guy.
I do have a store too.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Brian, I didn't know that.
No, well, I mean, we're gonna plug it at the end of the show. This is a good time to talk about it. So you do have a store, Eames.
I do.
You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So I love at the start of COVID, I had a whole closet of stuff because I would go search for goodies in garage sales and thrift stores. And once like last March and April hit, my closet was bare. I was sold out of all my stuff. And since then I've changed it up. It used to be like whatever I could find, but now it has to be very particular. It's usually Nintendo 64 or Game Boy stuff because Game Boy stuff is easy to ship and Nintendo 64 is fun to fix. So I do have a Nintendo 64 available.
Oh,
Brian.
We'll talk later. Yeah.
Brian, ask Santa Claus for N64. Santa Claus.
Yeah.
When's your birthday?
You sell, it's July. You sell stuff online, right?
I do.
Yeah, and I remember you were saying last week you were going to a huge like swap meet for games.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like a new model you're going for.
Yeah, I mean, they've had those swap meets a lot, but when you and I used to work when I used to work at Copa Vida with you, it was during the weekends, and that's the busiest time. So I was never able to go. So yeah, it was the first swap meet I went to, and the first like thing like that I went to in a long, long time. And I recorded it. I streamed it on my Twitch, and I asked my friends, whoever is interested in any of the stuff, just like Venmo or PayPal me, and I'll get it for you. You know, like let's buff up your collections through me. You know, this dude had a table of boxed Game Boy games and boxed Game Boys and like peripherals that are really rare. And you know, I was never into that. Like I just recently I got this guy it's a boxed copy of Super Mario Land 2, which is one of my favorite games of all time. It's super, super nostalgic. You take it out, you read the manual, like, oh man, this is a trip back in time. I was never into that kind of papers. These papers are very easy to damage, and I have a toddler in the house, so he can just rip it up, you know. So that was never on my radar, but I see the value to even collecting the papers.
Well, yeah, back in the day too, sometimes to know how to play a game, you needed that manual that came with the game, right? There was, because game design was still becoming like, it was still like growing. It was still in its baby steps, so no one thought about tutorials. It was just like, just read the manual and you'll know how to play the game.
Yep.
So,
None of the Nintendo Switch games don't come with anything except the little plastic.
No, just the yeah. That's so odd too, because like I like the aesthetic of like it's a little cartridge, but then like the case is like yay big. It's such a. I feel so bad. I'm like, this is such a waste. Like, but it's the world we live in, I guess, and I think that's Nintendo's aesthetic, obviously. So, yeah. But
one thing I do miss is those little pamphlets you get in the game, right? Because I remember for PlayStation, Tekken was one of my favorite games, and in order for you to know some of the moves for the characters, you got to go into the pamphlet, look up the character page. Okay, these are the 3 main moves that I can do with these buttons. Yeah. I didn't know what sounds like backstory. It's like you get to learn about them, what their whole deal is. Yeah.
Yeah, but now all of that's built into the game now.
Yeah.
So that it makes sense technology wise how like as games got bigger, obviously they were like, oh, we could just digitally put it in the game, like there's space in there. But there is something to be said about the nostalgia of like, how do you learn how to play the game? Go read the manual. So yeah.
Nice. Well, I guess the only thing when we hit everything on the outline, the last thing is I was talking about your podcast in full detail. You talked about how you got started.
Episode by episode, give us a quick synopsis. No, just kidding.
You talked about how it was a bunch of like you and your crew got together based on the whole. You called it was the Retroid 2.
Retroid Pocket 2, yeah.
Pocket 2, yeah. And how did it grow from there? Because you guys, I've listened to a couple episodes. You guys have really good content.
Thank you. Yeah, so the admin team to the Retroid Pocket 2 Discord, we got together and we were taken under the wing of another subsect of gaming called SBC gaming, which is single board computer gaming, which is the Retroid, the Raspberry Pi and such items like that. They had their own podcast and they invited people from our group to join their podcast, and that's where we got our feet wet and we're like, oh, this is a fun jam, like let's try it ourselves. So we got our group together and we started a podcast on our own, and the type of content that I like to put out is like interviews and stuff like that. So I've invited some of the more well-known YouTube celebrities in that niche community to join, and it just built from there. There's 4 rotating members, and 2 of the members are very witty and like they love to shoot the shit, and the other 2 are nerdy and very particular and like very organized, such as myself. And I would rather invite people on, ask them questions, and have them talk than me doing the talking the whole time. So it's a very diverse podcast crew.
Yeah, I can say all the ones I listen to, there's some episodes where it's just like 3 or 4 of you guys just kind of sitting around having a conversation. Those are really fun. Like those are just like, oh, it feels like I'm in the room just listening to your conversation. And it's like, I can, as someone who doesn't mod, like I can still understand like what you guys are talking about because of the way you guys talk about it, right? You're not like snobby at all. You don't use like huge words that like only niche people can understand. It's very accessible in that way. But the ones I really like are like the ones you did with Taki, I guess was his name. Yeah. He seems like a legit player in the whole like hardware modification game. But that interview was mind-opening for me, and just how much like detail goes into like which specific screen you have to get the right aesthetic.
Yeah, he's a gentleman from the States that lives in China, and he got connected with some of the managers and leaders of these companies that produce these Chinese handhelds, that like the Retro Pocket 2. And because of his experience with social media and YouTube, he switched from like being a Let's Play streamer to review of these different devices. And because he has these connections, he gets to even guide some of these companies to make a better product because of his particularness with how it should look. The screen, how should it should be warm or cool, the different angles, and making sure that the interface and the usability of these devices are more accessible to more people. So yeah, he is a legit guy, man. I'm a big fan of his.
That's awesome. I don't think you've mentioned it, but what's the name of your podcast?
It is, I forgot. BRB Gamer, BRB Gaming, Be Right Back Gaming. Basically, the idea is like most of us are parents, so we don't have the time to play video games. So it's like, hey, I'm gonna spend some time, talk about it, play it, and I gotta go.
Awesome. Like that. Where can we find your podcast? What are all the platforms it's on?
The easiest way to find it is simplecast.brbgaming.com. But for the plug, just go to RetroGM.com, and it'll have links to all my Discord, my store, the podcast.
Yeah, we'll make sure we have all those plugs in the description down below for all our listeners and anybody stumbling onto this this wonderful episode about this. You've opened my mind about the world of modding for sure, and I'm legit probably gonna try to send you one of my SPs to mod.
Do it. Get the Unhinged SP. They have the clear one that matches the aesthetic of your current SP.
I actually like, legitimately though, like yours, that blue with like, is it like a grayish kind of like white button? Like clear I buttons. Really love. It's clear buttons.
Clear buttons. They're the silver.
I legit love the way that looks.
I'll send you some more pictures, but the black with the brass buttons, oh man, that one right there.
That one
sounds great.
That one gives me like a Gibson guitar vibe for sure. Said the musician.
Thank you, Eames, for joining us today. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we wrap this up?
No. I mean,
no?
What else can we talk about? I did enjoy you guys bringing up Nintendo 64, because that's one of the home consoles that because I'm all about handhelds. So being stuck at home, that was one of the first home consoles that I had to pick up again, and David was mentioning Shadow of the Empire, and that's a legitimate game to talk about because of the licensing. But a more popular one would be Goldeneye. The licensing between Rare and the company that owns
MGM, MGM, right? It's MGM.
MGM or Artisan or whatever, and Nintendo. Like that game will never see the light of day again. So, and they made a modification where you can play with mouse and keyboard, and oh man, if you play Goldeneye with mouse and keyboard, it's like a different world.
There was a video recently I saw on YouTube about Goldeneye, how they actually were working on like an HD version of it, but because of all the different licensing of like Rare, Nintendo, the movie studios, not to mention Ian Fleming's Household, which is also like another big debacle. Like it just couldn't be done. Too many people have like some sliver of a right to James Bond. Yeah. And it's interesting how like that game now only exists on that console or emulator, but if you want the authentic experience, it only really exists on that console. You literally can't get it anywhere else. It's interesting. It's the same thing with like Shadows of the Empire too, where it's like both of those games were revolutionary in the fact that like much like Ocarina of Time kind of introduced like gaming as like, oh, we can tell a story through game. We can do something cinematic. You know what I mean? Where it was like obviously with James Bond, like it was the movie, but it was also like it had a storyline. It had like it had something that most people said couldn't be done, a first person shooter on a console game. And same thing with like Shadows of the Empire too. Had a lot of like the magic of Star Wars in it with like the score, and then like you had like the main character like Boba Fett and IG-88 for those. So it was an interesting time. I did want to ask you too, because you mentioned N64 and then you mentioned Wii. Did you skip the GameCube? Because I did. Growing up, I went straight to Dreamcast.
I guess I would consider it a skip because I only played Smash and Melee.
Same.
That's
why do you
on that one on me?
Do you mind if I ask how old you are? 'Cause I'm about to be 33. I'll put that out there.
I'm a little older than
you're a little older than me.
A couple of years older than you.
A couple of years older. Okay, but there's something to be said about like a generation, because I'm one of those people that like just skip the GameCube, like N64, and then PlayStation 2 after that.
Yeah.
What do you think that reason is? I have theories, but what do you think that reason is that we kind of skipped the GameCube?
I played Smash a lot. So in fact, that was when I was in high school and I went to a couple tournaments. So me and my friends were like, we're the best there is, like let's go check out the tournaments, and we got our butts handed to us. And there's a lot of very intense, devoted players to that game. So it was in Texas, and the 5 kids from Crystal City, Texas, it was no one could beat them, no one could touch them. Like they were the best players there were in Texas.
Man.
So like other than Melee, like can you name another GameCube game?
Wind Waker. Wind Waker is a good one.
That's a good one. But that one,
they remade it too. Yeah.
Yeah, they did a HD release of it on the Wii U, and I think did they do a port of it on Switch? I know you could probably buy it on the eShop, but I don't know if they did like a full physical port of it. But
I think one of the biggest titles that I would revisit after I play through the first of its series is the Paper Mario Thousand Year Door. Like I hear that's like one of the greatest games of all time, and it's really hard to come by. But I haven't finished Paper Mario on the Nintendo 64, but that would be one of the games that I would try.
Awesome.
I actually traded a GameCube recently for a Game Boy game. So I traded the GameCube, the cables, the controller, just for one Game Boy game.
Which game?
It's called Boktai, which is called Boktai. The sun is in your hands, or something like that. And like this cart can play all the games except that one has a special sensor that charges your gun. It's from the guy who made the Metal Gear Solid series.
Hideo Kojima.
I said the gamers are gonna chastise me for not knowing his name. Kojima.
Yeah, Kojima.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
But it would charge his gun with the power of the sun. So I had to pick it up.
Oh, that's fascinating. Did you ever play like any like PlayStation or anything like that, or Xbox, or were you strictly
I skipped
Nintendo?
The Game Boy Color growing up because of all the JRPGs that were on the PlayStation.
Nice.
Final Fantasy VII being the most important.
Of course, a lot of people's formative years because of that game.
Yeah.
Did you cry when spoiler alert died?
Mm-hmm.
Heck yeah,
very
dude.
Very much so. I was very torn up, and I thought I was a weirdo for for crying because of a video game character dying, but now I know. Now I'm reminded. I knew before, but I'm reminded that I'm not the only one.
No, a lot of people. I will admit, like that was a game that I never owned a PlayStation 1, so I never played that game. My first Final Fantasy was Final Fantasy X with Titus and Yuna, and I will fully admit the ending broke my heart into little itty bitty angsty pieces, and I sobbed for a whole day. I was like, they can never be together. He was a dream, so beautiful. But yeah, there's something to be said about like that shift in gaming where it just went from like, hey, here's a little guy and he jumps and shoots, you know what I mean, to being like cinematic experiences and like, yeah, and like
character development.
Yeah, but like it's completely different from the cinema in that you play the character, you are the character, you're informing the character's decisions and movements. So there's something to be said about like you are more invested because you are physically taking part in the story, which is I think like
it's the agency take.
Legitimately. Not to say that movies aren't as investing, because movies can be sweeping too, obviously, but there's something to be said about that actual personal connection and how much time, obviously, because games, obviously, depending, I'm a slow gamer, so a lot of games for me take like days, weeks at a time, so I'm spending like quality time with these characters that you can't help but kind of like form an attachment to in a lot of ways. So
yeah, that's good.
Brian, any other questions or concerns?
No, I think this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you so much for being our first like legit interview.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course, man.
We can talk hours and hours just about games and stuff like that, but
totally.
we do have to kind of cut it.
Yeah. No, what we do need to do, Brian, legitimately, is have like a bracket, like one of our bracket episodes, but make it gaming somehow. Either like video game movies, which I'm sure Eames would have a lot of opinions on, as we all would.
I like the hedgehog.
They turned that one around really nicely.
They actually did.
Yeah.
But is it the number one video game movie? Yeah. But I think that'd be fun if we had Eames and maybe he can invite some people from his podcast. We could do like a video game movie bracket one day for sure in the future. Yeah, I think that'd be a lot of fun. Well, Eames, thank you so much for being here. Once again, one more time, because you already did plug it, but then we kind of talked about
RetroGM. So my little icon right here .com, and yes, all the links that you need.
And of course, we'll have those links also in the description down below. Please go check them out. Yeah, Brian closes out.
All right. So you can find us at Speak Freely Pod on Instagram, Twitter. You can look it up on Spotify if you want, but it's not updated because of stuff.
Because of COVID. For being honest, because of COVID.
Yeah. But if you are watching on YouTube, please hit subscribe, hit the little bell, see notifications anytime the new episodes come up. And David, where can the good people find you?
You can find me at David B Music on Twitter and Instagram. Go stream my album Sunday Beats, available everywhere you stream music: Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, and whatever. Yeah, and honestly, and Napster. I just got that email too. So speaking of Napster, that's David B Music, Sunday Beats. Go check that out. And then my Twitch channel, twitch.tv, David B Music. And yeah, follow me. I do a lot of stuff. Brian, where can the people find you? And also, where can't they find you?
They could find me on Instagram at Kuno_stars, and they cannot find me on Twitter. I mean, you can, but what's the point?
Yeah. Yeah. You'll be screaming into a literal void there.
Well, that's been an episode of Speak Freely. Dear listener, thank you for joining us. We end the show, Eames, with a little
We try to synchronize our claps. All right, here we go.
1, 2, 3.
Close. Close enough.
Close enough.